Molly Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm going to do a fun bracelet for you that I'm calling the Maui Beach Bracelet. It's a cool design that's very nice and easy, and it's a fun design that was shown to me by one of our customers, and our customer Barbara came in and she was kind of looking for beads for a nice kind of summery beachy design that she had seen, and I said I would do a video on it for her. It is a great pattern, kind of a fun little tutorial idea that can have a lot of uses and a lot of design ideas for you to use as you kind of create that summer look. So this design is going to be using some larger hold seed beads or check style beads that we're going to be using with some cording. There's a couple different options that you can use cording wise as well as bead wise, and then I'm throwing in some pewter as well. If you need any of the materials at the beginning of the video, I have them all kind of laid out and I'll list them off. Also under the video there's a little show more button that has the details as far as the date that the video was produced, and if you kind of click on that to show more, it'll give you links to all of these different products as well. The other thing is in the little corner, if you take your mouse over, there's a little I button. That's information from us, the video producers, that give you links to the different videos as well. So the fun thing with this bracelet, like I said, you can kind of use anything. We're going to be using a thin cord, and you can either use a Chinese knotting cord like 0.8 millimeter. Here is a dark brown color. You can use some cotton cording, which is what I'm going to be using. It's 1 millimeter brown cotton cording. You can also use some silk cording too for this same design, and that way you'd be able to go with beads that have a little bit smaller of a hole if you did want to use smaller beads like 8/0 seed beads or so on. So there's a lot of different options, but I'm going to stick in the video with showing you how to use something 1 millimeter, which is going to be close to that 0.8, because the hole sizes will kind of dictate that design. So you have your cotton cording, and you're going to need approximately 44 inches of each cording. We're going to be folding that in half and kind of working with that. So you want about 44 inches so you have enough to work with total. In addition to our cording, we need some beads. One thing we do need in addition to our bead is a clasp. I'm going to be using a Potomac bead cup button, and in the design here that I did, I used the turquoise blue color. I'm going to be using this Picasso color, the white Picasso, white dark travertine Picasso look, to kind of brighten it up a little bit and to make it so that it's not the exact same bracelet with the design. In addition to a button or a clasp closure, you are going to need some silver beads. I have here laid out just a collection of random pewter beads that I have. We have tons of pewter beads and tons of selection of pewter beads. Because of that, I'm going to work more pewter into the design. I have a whole box that just has random pewter from the ends of packages. Most of them we sell are in packs like this that they have you know, just a couple in a pack, and they're rather inexpensive, so they're a nice addition to the actual bracelet itself. And it's going to brighten it up if I add a little bit more silver into the design. In addition to the cup button and the pewter beads, I also have some larger hole check glass beads. So the colorful beads here that I have, these are going to be the Matubo beads. The Matubo beads are a check style seed beads that are cut. So these are the cut Matubo style beads, and they are a 6/0 seed bead. I have here the Jade Picasso, the Opaque Coral Red, and the Lemon Picasso. I like the way that those give kind of the natural look, but we have tons of color options in those and tons of picks for you if you want to kind of pick those out. I also have the Matubo in the metallic mix, which is going to give me those copper and kind of burnt red color on that copper and that gold mix as well. In addition to that, I have some O beads that I used. Here I used the jade color O bead and the vintage copper. In the design that I'm going to use, I have the Aztec gold sitting here, the vintage copper, and then I also brought in the neon blue just to grab that again to make it a little bit brighter for the actual design. In addition to all the beads, the cording, the button, and all of that, you are definitely going to want some super glue glue to kind of glue the ends, because that's how the magic is going to happen, that you're going to get some of these beads on. And you need some scissors. These are just my daughter's craft scissors that she has that I happen to grab out of the drawer. So a simple pair of scissors will do. Once you are ready to go, we're going to dump out kind of little piles of beads. If you want to dump them out ahead of time and kind of get a color design going, you can do that. I'm going to be pretty much literally picking them up at random. So I'm going to dump out little piles of my beads, and I'm also going to get ready with my scissors to cut my cording and get ready with my glue as well to get the ends ready to work with. So to get started with this Maui Beach bracelet, like I said, you want to have your scissors handy. I had stated that you're going to need about 44 inches of cording. That's because we're going to be doing 4 strands. Obviously, if you want the bracelet to be thicker, you can do more strands. 4 is a nice number, though, to start out with. For those 4 strands, I'm actually using 2 pieces of my cording. Each piece of cording is going to be about 22 inches long. If you know that you have a bigger wrist, bigger than standard size, which is going to be about a 7-inch, you may want to add an additional 4 inches to that, starting with 12 inches per strand, or even 13, rounding up on that. The reason I need extra cording on each side, so each strand that we'll be working with is approximately 11 inches, which is really going to be 2 22-inch pieces of cording. Those are going to get doubled over as we work to bring them down towards the end. Here at the beginning, one of our cording is going to go through our button. If you have a button that's big enough, you can also take both pieces of cording through your button. That's kind of up to you. To start out, I have my pieces of cording, so those 2 22 inches of cording, and I've gone ahead and I've cut them and looped them in half. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my super glue glue. If you're using the knotted cord or if you're using the cotton cording, you're definitely going to want to glue the ends of the cording. I'm going to take the glue, hold the end of the cording, and literally just kind of run the glue along the end of the cording. It's going to dry the ends of the cord then and make them stiff like a needle. If you have extra pieces or extra glue on it, you can also take one of your little pieces of trash here and just kind of run it on to get any little extra balls of glue off. Set those off to the side of your bead board or your bead mat so they can dry, and that way you don't get any glue on your mat that you're working with. So I'm going to take that and kind of just get off any excess glue. And I'm just holding my 3 pieces, making sure they're not touching my bead mat, not getting glue on. Nothing is as sad, especially if you have a bead on it board. I have one that I got glue on, which is kind of super depressing, but it works. It shows that it's a well-loved board and well-used. So I have my glue now on my 4 ends of my cording. Let that dry for a couple minutes, and as it dries, I'm going to kind of get out my beads and start my design. The reason I'm doing that is because it's going to prevent the ends from fraying. In addition to fraying, it's creating a stiff end, which is going to be more like a needle, which makes it easier for me to pick up my beads. As this cording is drying a little bit, and the super glue is a nice fast drying cording, I'm just kind of setting it off to the side there. As it's drying, I'm going to get out my beads and get ready to design. So I have my button, which will go on first, and we'll be dealing with that. Take your super glue, which you'll use at the end, close that up, and now we're going to get out our beads. So the beads, again, I'm working with the Matubo beads, and these are the 6/0 Matubo beads. If you do want to work with any smaller beads, like I said, you can do different cording as well. I'm going to dump out little piles of my beads to get my fun color arrangement. So I'm not going to worry too much about beads mixing. The nice thing is these are 6/0 beads. So if you have a friend that doesn't really want to bead or doesn't bead a lot or doesn't really know anything about beading, this is a good place for them to start because it gets that look and that design without too much stress and with very minimal effort. So again, just kind of pouring out some of those designs. And like I said, there's a lot of options as far as colors go with the different Matubo beads. The Matubo beads, like I said, are about 6/0 seed beads, and they're manufactured in the Czech Republic. So most of our beads and seed beads are manufactured in Japan. and that's going to be the Miyuki brand or the Toho brand of 6OC beads. These are different because they are manufactured in the Czech Republic. The O beads are also manufactured in the Czech Republic, and so this whole bracelet kind of is going to be done with Czech and then with pewter. The pewter that I'm working with, again, has a little bit bigger of a hole, which is going to be pretty consistent with most of the pewter beads that we carry. At this point, a minute later, after I just did the gluing of the ends, they're pretty stiff and they're not wet to touch anymore. I'm going to grab the ends of all of the cording after laying out the beads here, and simply grabbing the ends, I'm going to make sure when I go down to the end here that I have the middle of the threads still taut and making sure that there's still 11 inches on each thread. From here, we're going to get ready to add our button. So obviously both strands are not going to fit through the button because it only has a size hole that's about the same as the O bead, which is going to be about a 1 millimeter hole. So trying to get 2 millimeters through that 1 millimeter hole is not going to happen. Because of that, I'm going to show you that I'm just going to take one piece of my cording here and go up through my cup button. If you need to, and some of your cording gets a little bit of a bald end, you can take your scissors and simply cut down the end of the thread, and that's going to make it easier to go through the button end. I'm going to take one of these cords, like I said, and we are going to go through the button here. I'm going to take my scissors and just cut off the very end of the cord. The glue still goes up through here, so it's going to make it easier to put on the button. And it's not going to ball that up. So looking at the design, I kind of apologize. I switched out the button last minute. This one here, I just wasn't feeling with the colors, and that's kind of why I chopped it off there. But I decided to pull up one of our new cup button colors, and this is the Jet Full Argentine, so it's a little bit more of that pewter color. I wanted more of that silver at the end. I wasn't crazy over this one. So I'm switching out my button, but we're still going the same effect. So again, I have one strand going through the button, and I'm making sure that my thread is even at the very end. So I have those 11 inches basically coming out the end of the thread. From here, I'm going to tie the second piece of thread onto the bottom of that first piece. So I'll kind of make a little section here for you guys to see. And you can do this with a square knot. You can do this with a hemp knot, with a macrame knot, kind of up to you. I'm going to simply tie the knot, making sure again that my threads are even. They're holding at the end, and then pushing the knot up into place. When I hold at the end and make sure those threads are even, it's going to make sure that that knot is also keeping the threads even. I'm tying that knot around the base there. And now I have my 4 strands. If you want to, you can do what I did on mine, which is actually do a macrame knot 2 times to get that square knot look. To get the square knot look, you're going to take your 2 strands that are coming out of the button from the middle and hold them straight down through the middle. If you've never done the macrame stitch before, I also have a video on that too. The second cording, which is the left side, is going to go over the top of the loop that I made on the right, which that loop on the right is going over those 2 base strands. The cording on the left goes over top of the one that was on the right, underneath those 2 base strands, and out through the middle of the loop. Pushing that up, we get our first little macrame knot. Doing the same thing on the left side. I'm going to do my little loop there with the left, going over the 2 center cordings. The thread on the right now goes over the top of that cording, and then through the middle, going underneath those 2 base cords. And push up. Now we are ready to have fun and actually do our design. So I have a little bit of area there before the knot. It's going to hold that thread in really well, and it also makes it so that when you put the actual Maui bracelet on, the beads are not right up at the clasp. So now we get, like I said, to have fun. Now it's all a matter of picking and choosing your colors. So that's part of this design, is thinking exactly what colors and kind of what pattern you want. I want it to be very simple and not overthought. So I started with one strand when I did this that was primarily one color. So that was my turquoise strand, using just a little bit of silver and a little bit of other colors inside of it. So grabbing a strand, you're going to pick up your beads. I'm going to start with kind of that vintagey gold mix, using 2 of those, and then right away throwing on one of my silver beads. Throwing that silver bead on, so there's a silver kind of right near the end there, and I'm going to drop that down right next to the clasp. From here, I'll go with one of the bright colors, either the turquoise or the red. You want to pick up one of your brightest colors and make that one of your strands. That strand is going to be kind of one of the dominant ones that is seen throughout the project. So use a majority of that dominant color. You can see how nice and easy these go on, with that end kind of being stiff and working like a needle. So I'm going to continue on adding more and more of these red cut beads. And I'm not doing any beads in between them. You can choose to do so. But like I said, I want to keep one of the strands pretty simple and pretty dominant in one color. And in this case, it's going to be that red color. So I'm going to put on a bunch of the red beads. And the cool thing with this bracelet, you get a couple tubes of the matubos, a couple tubes of the O beads, and you can make a bunch of the bracelets. So I have a bunch of the beads on there. You can see it's probably about maybe 18 or 20 or so of those red beads on for about 2 inches. I'll throw 2 more of the gold beads on just for a little bit of that gold color. Throw a 3rd one of that mixed metal on. It's a great tube to get. And then I'll throw another one of the silvers on. Throw that silver twisted barrel on there. Then I'm going to continue with the red to the end. When I finish this strand, I'm going to do the red beads again as the primary strand, and you're not going to actually tie off the strand at all. You're just going to kind of let it hang. If you want to, you can do a bead stopper or some tape to finish off the strand, and like I said, to let it hang. At the very end of this dominant color row where I just did the gold and the red, I'm going to start with some of my O beads. So I'm going to put that color pop of that bright blue. When you put the O beads on, sometimes they need a little bit of help. You can kind of push them on and spin as you're putting them on to your cording. You also have a little bit of extra room that if you need to cut the end and do a little bit of glue again, you can do that. I'm going to push these down. And once you have about 6 3/4 inches of beads, your first strand will be complete. From there, we're going to go on to a second strand. The second strand, as far as a color design idea, when I do the second strand, I'll start out with the opposite color, so kind of the polar color, which is going to be that red and green. So I'll start out the next strand with my green, that nice green jade Picasso, and go in with a jade Picasso and start to design a second strand. As I design my strands, I want to make sure that my silver beads are not all hitting in the exact same place, and also my accent color beads are not hitting in the exact same place. So I'm going to go ahead and design with my jade, using probably a silver right in the middle of the red, using another silver here right in the middle of the blue, and so on. So we have to get 3 more strands with our beads strung on in a nice color variety, going about 6 3/4 inches. So just to show the kind of design of the second strand, like I said, I wanted to make it mainly the color that is going to be the off color of the first one. So the first strand, I did a lot of that red color, and then I just brought in a little bit of the goldenish color and that bright blue. The second strand, I made primarily the green or that jade color, bringing in a tiny bit of that light blue, but popping in that yellow color. The next 2 strands I'm going to do as really a mix between all of the colors. So you can see I mixed a lot of the colors here, having 3 of the different colors on this one, 3 of the different color, I'm sorry, 4 on this one, 3 on this one. The next 2 that I do, I'm going to do that same color blockish look here, going in and adding the colors, bringing some of that bright blue down at the base here, and then also some of that bright blue in at the end, bringing some of that yellow down at the base, and really looking at the previous strands and designing based on that. So that way the colors fall in different areas, the silver falls in different areas, and I bring all that color palette kind of together. Once you have all of the beads evened out here, and you make sure that all of your strands are even, you can kind of see the design going along with it. What we're going to do is we want to tie a knot. I want to make sure again that all of my strands of my beads are even, and I don't want to tie the knot right up against the very end. I want the beads to be able to move a little bit up and down because it is a beach bracelet, as we're calling it. I want the beads to have a little bit of freedom on the strand, not to be super tight, but just to move around a little bit. That being said, I'm going to tie a knot after the beads. I'm going to tie this knot first, kind of thinking that it is close to the actually end of the beads, getting ready to pull it nice and tight, and then just relaxing a little bit. You can see that extra cording there before the knot, and then pulling the knot closed. This is going to let the beads kind of move around that cording, like I said, just a little bit so that it has a nice relaxed fit when it is on your wrist. You don't want it to be too stiff that it's all kind of stiff as it wears around your wrist and everything sits together. You can also then, if you want to, kind of twist this bracelet when you put it on and wear it with that twisted design. After the knot, which is just that overhand knot doing all 4 strands together, we're going to make another knot that is going to act as the space that the button is actually going to go in between. The button will sit between 2 strands on one side and 2 strands on the other. Kind of keeping that button distance in mind, which is going to be right about there. I'm going to hold my hand there and I'm going to tie another knot. So this is the super simpleness of this bracelet, which is awesome. So we're just going to tie another knot here, making sure that all 4 strands come out of that knot and that you have your 4 ends. And then I'm going to pull that knot nice and tight. That area there, you want to make sure again that your button can sit in between and gets put on there, but you don't want it so big that the button is going to slide out. Once you have that tied, that is the loop and that is your clasp. From there, we get to decorate the ends. So again, to make it a little bit more beachy and kind of reminds me of like the end of a swimsuit, you're going to put on some more beads. So I just have a couple beads here that I'm going to throw in on the end, taking the beads, kind of one of each color that I've been working with, not making them too long, but just throwing a couple beads on. After the beads are on, I'm going to take my thread and simply tie a knot. Again, I don't want it super tight next to the beads that they're nice and stiff. I want just a little bit of a distance. Pull that knot nice and tight. Take my scissors, cut off the end of the cord. If you want to, you can even do a little dab of glue there. I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm going to feed on my next bead, on my next little kind of design here. Whatever beads I pick up. Keep in mind you have the silver beads too, so you can put some silver beads onto the end like I did there. And I do want my strands to be different in lengths. So I'll make one a little bit shorter, one a little bit longer, one hang down a little bit more, one with a couple more beads on it. So I'm going to tie that off. And if you happen to have the end of your string that it's not long enough, you can also just use an O-bead at the very end and kind of glue it in place. Again, tie, trim off. And this is a bracelet, like I said, kind of anybody can do, which is awesome. It's also one of those bracelets that is going to be great to show teenagers or preteens because they're going to be able to do it too. So a lot of kids have off for the summer. This is kind of a great little filling them in and showing them the beading world. So after you have your beads, tie your knot. And the other nice thing about this bracelet is you really can use anything. And because the knots don't need to be really close and uptight, you can also, if you want to, have more of a space so that way you see more of the cording. You can tie knots in between the beads up here too for a different look, showing that then you, if you want to, that different look can incorporate the knots in between, leaving spaces as well. So a lot of different versions of this bracelet. This also is a great bracelet. I think we're going to do it in our Hagerstown location for Bead and Wine Night because it's a nice easy one that you can complete. You don't need to think about it and you can still socialize while you're making it. So got my last couple beads on there. And I'll end with the turquoise one here. Tie off the end of my thread. And that is literally it. Cut that off, and now my Maui Beach bracelet is completed. And you have that fun little fringe at the end and that nice little design. So you can see just changing out one of the O beads, kind of what that does to the design and to the color of the bracelet. Switching out from that turquoise to that bright blue kind of makes two different of the same versions of the bracelet. Again, if you need any of the materials to do this fun bracelet, you can go back to the beginning of the video where I list off the materials and tell you guys all the different fun matubos and O beads, but really have fun, go crazy, get a bunch of the matubos and play around with some different cording. Like I said, you can use the cotton cording, you can use that wax linen cording, you can use the Chinese knotting cording, and the different size cordings are going to get you a different variety of the pewter too that fit on. You can even do silk cording with pearls if you want a little bit more of a delicate look. And have fun using whether or not you use the cup buttons or throw in some pewter buttons and kind of make the design your own. If you do need the materials, again, below the video too, there's that little show more button behind the description that you can kind of grab on and gravitate towards that to all the different links. As always, if you like this YouTube video and want to learn more and watch other videos, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also check me out on Facebook as well as on Instagram and at PotomacBeads.com. Check out our designs. You can post on Facebook. You can ask to become a member of our beading group on Facebook for jewelry and for beading and jewelry making. Show your wares and what you guys are working on. Interact with a wonderful group of people that like to answer questions, be helpful, give ideas, and really show inspiration. So thank you guys so much for watching this fun bracelet, which I am definitely going to wear to work tomorrow. This fun Maui Beach bracelet. And thank you, Barbara, for bringing it into the store, showing off what you have designed from your addiction to Pinterest and kind of getting different ideas and showing what you can do with our beads at the store. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have fun making the Maui Beach bracelet.